look at that. It's like we never did that last 10 minutes of foolery. We're going to delete that.
If you missed the last 15 minutes of all of this, that's probably best.
Yeah, so 20 minutes. Here we go. We're going to talk about individualism. We're going to talk about collectivism, how it's showing up in our lives in this pandemic. I'm getting tired of the word pandemic, TBH.
Yeah.
And before we do all that, before we get into it, Maren, can you give us a recap of what we have dove into this month? Topics we've talked about.
Yeah, April's over. We started IG, our Long-Winded Wednesdays, April 1st. So this will be our 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just shout out to April. That happened. Shout out to us showing up here for 4 weeks in a row, trying to figure out the tech thing. Anybody out there know how to IG Live and Facebook Live at the same time? We're looking for some help there.
Yeah, IG Live, Zoom, Facebook Live.
Zoom, Facebook Live, yeah. Any help there? Otherwise, I think we'll try Facebook Zoom next time. Anyway, we're still figuring, everything's figure outable, but we're still figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've come on here and you and I have conversations all the time, and so just wanted to be more consistent, and so we've just, in the midst of all of this, everyone knows what this is at this point. We've talked about, what did we first time we talk about?
Well, one thing I'll add to why we're doing this is we do a lot of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion training, for people in the Denver area. And there's a lot of side conversations that Maren and I have after the fact, or like deeper dives we want to do in a topic that we don't always feel like we can do as facilitators, because it's our job to hold the space and not necessarily insert ourselves or our thoughts. So it's just coming to me. Long-winded Wednesday is like Maren and Jenny's chance to participate. Yeah, that's what it is. To participate.
Oh, I love that.
Because we always have to facilitate it.
We always have to facilitate it.
With our upcoming workshop with the Colorado Nonprofit Association this Thursday, we're diving into the topic of individualism and collectivism. Yeah. And yeah, there's some thoughts that we have around that in our personal lives and how those cultural things are showing up. But if I could backtrack, let's see. Let's go week by week. So
last week we talked about protests and feelings and kind of being able to hold multiple truths and perspectives in the midst of all of what's happening. The week before that, wow, it's all blurring to me now. Was that we talked about race, like COVID and racism in general, flat out? Yeah.
We talked about privilege and COVID. I think that was the first one.
That was the first one.
Mm-hmm. So that's 3 right there.
Yeah, there it is. Privilege, racism, protests.
Yes.
And today, individualism and collectivism. I need to take a breath. Like all that technology stuff, like I feel like I'm flying in the air a little bit.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. I need to put my feet on the ground and take a deep breath in.
I created a standing desk, so I feel like good standing, but sorry, I just filled in the silence.
It's fine. No, it's okay. You don't have to be quiet.
Maren just tried to have a silent moment of take a deep breath, and like literally on the exhale, I was like, so I just did this. Okay, great. Let's jump on it.
Anyway, this is
individualism and collectivism. We've been talking a lot about it in our organization. It's been on my mind as I navigate this world. Hello, Hamida.
Hi, Hamida.
Hard eyes back to you. And I think in my first inclination to like wrestle with this topic was to be like, wow, America is so individualistic. The US is so individualistic, and we need to be collective at this time to get through this pandemic. So why aren't we? And knowing that I had some individualism in me, but not quite knowing how much and how deep it runs for me, and how confusing it is to try to live with, it feels like two different values at the same time. Like, how do I be collective? How do I check in on my people, but then how do I respect their individual values, and whether or not they want to wear a mask, and whether or not they want to see people, and all that stuff. So, Maren, what has been going on for you in terms of that tension of individualism and collectivism?
I feel like that's like some of the biggest, like the biggest mirror that's being held up is how much I identify as, I mean, I'm single, I'm an auntie, I'm very much like proud, or have identified as proud in myself as a self-sufficient woman. I don't need anything. I don't need anybody. Like, whether I say that outright or not, like there is like a something in my head that runs through of, I have to have this all figured out. And if I don't have it all figured out, there's something wrong with me, or like there's shame in needing support or help or asking for help. And this scenario has forced me in very many ways to accept help, to ask help, and to really like reflect on, again, that tension of where individualism and taking care of myself has been so beneficial in my own personal life, of like, what are my boundaries and what do I need? But also how much maybe that has become a wall between certain folks, certain people, certain elements of my past, certain elements of my life. Like, I definitely wouldn't say that I resist community, but maybe I do in some ways. Yeah. And so, yeah, and how much of that is my whiteness as well, of like, I'm an individual and I should pull myself up by my bootstraps, and I shouldn't have to ask for help. And ultimately, like, I came to Colorado to prove myself in a sense.
And ultimately, frontier.
Yeah, ultimately I have. And also, I've never been able to do anything without other people in my life. Whether that as a white person, it's been my family or familial wealth or things like that, but also just like our relationship, you and I's relationship, my relationship with other folks in different spaces, and in the spiritual healing groups and spaces I'm in here, and ultimately the tension of, well, and maybe also like the sense that it feels easier sometimes to be alone in order to navigate everything.
Yeah.
And so like there's some avoidance maybe.
For me, I relate to that of like, it feels easier because my own personal story, my own background with my family is that like we've had some shit happen.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I think that we're a collective in a family of 4 as I was a teen. But it was like, I felt like we were each, there was I can't even say it. There was an unspoken norm that we didn't burden each other. Because there was already enough shit to deal with. So I didn't want to burden my dad with my feelings and my things, because he was trying to keep our family afloat and provide for us. My older sister was like basically turning into a mom at the age of 18. My younger sister was trying to do school. And so we were all like simultaneously trying to help each other without burdening each other with our stuff. So in a Mexican family, somehow it started, I feel like this individualism grew, or like was cultivated, that we stayed in our own rooms and we stuck to ourselves, and we didn't even grieve the passing of my mom together as much as we should have, because it's like that dependency was too much.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I resonate with that. I had a different family scenario, but also like a very big upending thing. And you saying that, like, what is it even around grief that we I've seen and I've experienced in myself with seeing other friends like lose.
You froze when you were talking. You said lose.
Yeah, someone called me, so I had sorry. Oh. So almost.
Maybe someone's calling.
Holy cow. Someone keeps
Maren.
Trying to call me. Stop.
Is it the feds? They know.
It's Durango, Colorado. I don't know what they want from me.
That's the feds.
Anyway, just that inability to be in a collective space to grieve or to have feelings together. Like, for me to have feelings is somehow a burden on you, and like that very individualistic take. It feels like what we've experienced, like how like sharing feelings and how that creates empathy and like a connection when we're talking about hard things like race and identity and experiences. And ultimately, what a beautiful lifeline that can be, a connection that can be. And yet it's something that is shied away from when it's could be real deep like that, when you really technically need each other, but you're so worried about putting more of a burden on others.
Yeah. I see you got a comment from A Garcia 1213. Not sure what the first name is, but yes, thank you. Like, it's weird because I feel like as a Mexican culture, it's viewed as like more collective, and it is more collective. So I don't know what it is about my family. I've heard about a lot of other families who identify as Latinx where that grief and those emotions aren't really shared, especially in the US. Hi. Especially in the US, it's like if you have had an immigrant experience in your lineage, then it's like there's this, it's kind of like the rugged individualism thing that you said, but like we don't cry, we just keep moving because it's came here for life to be good, so let's suppress anything that's bad. Which it feels like then if we connect it to what's going on now, it makes a lot of sense because people are collectively grieving, but we haven't been taught how to grieve dependently or whatever, like how to help each other in that. So it's like I feel like I see a lot of people siloed in their sadness and hurt and fear and anxiety.
Yeah, because it ultimately, I've seen where it's in me, it's created discomfort, and I don't know what to do with that discomfort. If someone else is hurting or sad, I just want it to go away, versus I'm here as a space holder, or I'm here to be with you in it. You know, like there's different ways of approaches. And for me, in a white family, to me, it was just, again, a part of that individualism, rugged individualism, but also passive aggression around like, and this belief that my feelings are too much. And again, that maybe there was a sense of burden, but more it was just like, don't rock the boat sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a different reasoning, or like there was just not permission or practice around it.
Yeah. And yeah, I see this other comment from Amy. Yeah. I feel like we're kind of taught to hide our emotions and keep working. Definitely. I feel like even in having this conversation with you, Maren, like this is why I love chatting about things with you randomly. It feels like there's more similarities that rise up. And I think in my head, I've kept it as a binary so much of like, this is individualism culture and this is collectivism culture. Most Black and brown people are collective and most white people are individual. And I hadn't even really realized how much that was ingrained in my head. But like, it's way more complex than that. And even within these collective cultures, and hearing what you're saying, Amy, and what I'm feeling, it's like we still have that pressure to be individualistic. And I don't know if that's driven by like white supremacy and like the need to succeed and do all these things in the US, or if that would also happen if that would also happen in my dad's family, like decades ago on a ranch in Mexico, I don't know what. There's also like layers of machismo too, right? So there's that would probably keep him and his brothers from feeling like they would ever want to share their emotions.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like kind of patriarchy.
Yeah.
Patriarchy and white supremacy, that little sandwich ruined everything.
Both of those things.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, and you and I have been taught, ultimately there's this drive in us both as individual single ladies, wanting to be self-employed and be out here and doing the things that we want to do. And like what feels like kind of an arrival of that is that we can afford to live alone. And yet we've also had conversations around how that's also changing for us now too. Like, what is that? Like, why do I want that? And it's okay to want that. And also maybe right now that's not what is necessary. Do you want to speak more on how that's kind of been showing up for you?
Totally. Like, it's like, I feel like my desire to live alone and eventually buy my own house, be so self-sufficient, like as this pandemic has hit and rolled out, I feel like I've just been slapped in the face. Like, what were you thinking? Like, it's a good goal. And also, like, if shit hits the fan, I need other people, and I can't pretend like I don't. And I feel like, that right now I'm really challenged in my desire, because on a spiritual level, I do feel like I'm being called to this life of like independence, leadership, self-sufficiency, and breaking away from dependency. But how the world looks right now, 2020, I don't know if that's the best move. And I was so sure that it was the best move before all this happened.
Right. Yeah.
How do you feel now about your dream to live alone and own a tiny home?
A tiny home. Yeah, I mean, it's still a dream. I still am very much someone who it's essentially a best scenario for me in some regards, in terms of managing my own self and not taking on other people's things. And like what I've learned about myself is my tendency to want to help or fix things. And so to be by myself and do the work that I've done and essentially look at that has been very useful. I don't know. I think, but ultimately, again, I think I'm holding this question right now is like, have I been avoiding being with other people because it makes me uncomfortable, because I still have a lot to work on and build tools around and boundaries around? And ultimately, what I've found now the last 6 weeks, I ended up leaving Colorado March 11th to go for a weekend with friends, and I never came back. I stayed with those friends for 2 weeks, and then I drove to Minnesota and stayed for 4 weeks with my family. And ultimately, I have not been alone for the last 6 weeks, which is a very unusual thing for me. Yeah. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful. It was hard. And also there was some amazingness about being able to share in this experience with other folks and not be alone in my room.
Yeah, that definitely seems like it provided contrast of like your normal life as an independent single lady to the T of doing your own thing, and now, whoa, you're living with your friends and you're dependent on them, and now you're living with your parents and you're dependent on them. And like, what did you see that you might have been missing in terms of like your life as it is here, being more independent?
Yeah, I've had to work through, especially being with my friends, mostly like, again, this fear that if I needed help and I was relying on them, that somehow I was this leech or somehow I was unworthy of the help. And it was all a reminder of no, I get to be loved. I get to be cared for, and ultimately have this experience more of this give and take that I think I've gotten frustrated, especially like in just like romantic relationships too. It gets frustrating to feel like there's not a reciprocity, so it's just easier to cut it off and just take care of myself. So
we don't even have time to get into that thing. You just opened that can of worms. Dating and dependency. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. And attachment styles. That's an additional thing. It is 101.
It is. Okay.
So let us name an emotion and kind of do a checkout if you're cool with that.
Yep.
And how we're closing out. How are you doing?
I'm in curiosity, I guess. I wish we had figured out our technology earlier and talked about this more, because now I'm like really thinking about it. But I'm good. I'm feeling good today. And also, like, when I feel good, I feel guilty about that. So.
Oh, the complexity of the quarantine pandemic.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I actually went running this morning and I feel energized and good about myself. And this conversation was helpful. Like, I feel like our past couple ones have been a little bit more rocky, getting into the flow of whatever we're doing. And this one we didn't plan as much. And it seemed to flow like our normal conversations do. So feel happy about that.
Yeah. We're learning, we're practicing, we're modeling. Get out here, say things.
Yes.
Lean in it with us. And if you have any topics or questions or things you want us. Whoop whoop.
Yes, what Maren was saying.
Please reach out message us or in any of the comments of the pictures or things that we're posting. Again, we're coming on here Wednesdays and then adding the videos onto Facebook. But we're also, again, we're figuring out some other technology. But thanks for all of y'all who've come and joined us, and we'll be here again next Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks Taylor, thanks Amy, thanks everybody who's engaging and came in and out of this.
Yeah.
Please feel free, especially next time, to add comments and add what you're learning as well. It helps our dialogue flow even better.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next Wednesday.
Whoop, whoop.